What a head, son! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through my very own double game week 28 team selection. So quite an exciting game week, to be honest, as we look to potentially use the bench boost and a nice little double game week so that we can get the most out of our starting 11 as well. Now, as we always do on these team selections, we're going to take a look at blank/double game week 27. Double game week, I say, but I don't really think the Burnley assets got the memo. Going to be reflecting on my own team and how they got on before switching the attention to double game week 28 and looking at my transfer and chip strategy plan. So that's something you guys are interested in? Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So before we go on to the actual Game Week 27 review, I just want to give you guys a quick reminder and an update about the FA Cup scenario. So as you guys know, Chelsea and Norwich could potentially both double. I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the transfer plan, but basically what you have to know is that if Chelsea or Norwich win tonight, Chelsea taking on Luton and Norwich taking on Liverpool, so if either of those teams do win, both those teams will double. Chelsea having Burnley away and then also Norwich away, and then Norwich having Chelsea at home as well as Brentford at home. But this talking point is actually going to revolve around a blank game week 30, and we have had an update because we had some FA Cup games last night. So the teams that ended up winning last night were going to be Man City and Crystal Palace. So those two fixtures naturally are now going to be blanks in a blank game week 30. But the interesting talking point that came out of last night was that Spurs actually ended up losing to Middlesbrough in extra time. So what that news kind of tells us is that there will be definitely one more game in blank game week 30. It's either going to be Burnley versus Southampton or Spurs versus West Ham. The reason I'm saying this is that Southampton and West Ham play each other tonight, and as you guys know, in a football game, there has to be a winner. So either Southampton or West Ham will come out of that game victorious, and whoever kind of wins will blank, and the opposition who loses will have a nice fixture in blank game week 30. So the reason I wanted to highlight this is not only for information, but it also does kind of reflect on my transfer plan that we'll address a little bit later on in the video. Finally, shout out to Ben Krellin for this graphic that you see on screen. Apologies, forgot to do the shout out at the start, but this is basically the prediction of how much blank percentage they have going into blank game week 30. But now going on to our Game Week 27 double game week / blank game week team review. And starting off, we did not have a very good game week, but that's kind of natural whenever you go into a free hit week where the majority of FPL managers are using the chip, but you are not. So at the end of the day, we actually managed to get 41 points, which was actually slightly above the average of 1 point, but definitely not above the average of the top 10k. And that saw a slide. We actually almost doubled our rank to about 19k places. We were about that 10k mark, but unfortunately with the no chip usage, we had quite a big red arrow. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, no chips versus chip usage, you're always going to come out with probably a red arrow. The nice thing, however, is that we kind of are now on a level playing field in inverted commas now that most FPL managers have used their first free hit when we used ours in game week 19. So from now to the end of the season, hopefully our chip strategy will come out trumps and our transfer plan will come out trumps, and that will see us get a couple of green arrows from now till game week 38. So I'm going to start off with the bench here on the Game Week 27 review, as there's not much to actually talk about. It's a blank game week, so our Arsenal and our Liverpool options all ended up blanking, and thankfully none of them actually had to come off the bench because the majority of our starting 11 actually got at least 1 point. So I'm going to start off with the defensive positions first because we actually had some really nice performers here, some nice differentials. Forster from Southampton picking up a clean sheet, as well as Lucas Digne with a nice 6 points as well. That helped us kind of limit that red arrow to not be as much. But then we go on to our first transfer in. We took out Virgil van Dijk for Ben Mee. I decided to go guns blazing with the double game week. Wanted a bit of Burnley coverage because most of the free hitters actually doubled up or tripled up on those Burnley assets. But what does Ben Mee go and do? He gets injured in the second game. Not really his fault, but he did kind of go into a tough challenge that led to that injury. So he only got 1 point, but that was the same as the rest of the Burnley defenders. Now our expectation of Burnley actually came true. We said that they weren't going to keep a clean sheet in either game, but I thought there might be a slight attacking thread from me, Tarkowski, these sort of centre backs, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Saiz also ended up only getting 2 points. I was quite disappointed in that because they ended up losing once again, only 1-0, kind of conceding 1 goal, and I really was dependent on those Wolves assets to get me some points because everyone kind of didn't have them on a free hit and they were almost my little differentials. But at the end of the day, not really an expectation for them to beat West Ham, but both sides were actually playing quite well recently, and that's why I had a slimmer of hope. But now going on to our midfield department, and Heung-min Son was the star performer of our blank/double game week 27 with a lovely 9 points. Spurs ended up beating Leeds 4-0, and we had to wait till the 4th goal for Heung-min Son to get some returns. Was actually a popular captaincy option, not really the most popular, but definitely I think 2nd place, so well done if you guys did go for the South Korean. Now the rest of our midfielders go in descending order there. 3 points, 2 points, 1 point. Coutinho, Aston Villa ended up winning, but he didn't get any attacking returns, and his stats recently have actually not been looking that strong. Rafinha on the other hand, I think he had a relatively tough game against Spurs, a side that actually have been conceding recently, but have also been quite defensively strong under Conte. Now Rafinha did also have his chances though. I actually heard from some people over on FPL Twitter that he was actually a little bit unlucky not to get any attacking returns, and I really didn't need the Leeds man to give me some points. But the final midfielder and our 2nd player that we actually brought in, I guess you could say for a -4 hit, or you could say Ben Mee was for a -4, was I took out Mo Salah, and that explains the money in the bank, and I brought in Riyad Mahrez. So Mahrez, in my opinion, was the most nailed player going into that game against Everton, and that's how I opted for him. Now what happens? Pep roulette. Pep ends up benching the Algerian, and he came off the bench for only 1 point. Now when he did come off the bench, City ended up scoring, so I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't get any attacking returns, but once again just shows you that we can't really trust Pep. Now luckily that Man City game did not go on to be quite a high scoring one, otherwise I would have been in the mud as a non-free hit user. And now finally going on to the last position, the forwards, we've got Broja, Raul Jimenez and Weghorst, who had a similarity, either returned 2 or 1 point appearances, which I was quite disappointed with. So in terms of Broja, he did have a couple of chances, but I was expecting more against Norwich at the end of the day. Southampton have been attacking quite well, but it was his colleague Che Adams that got on the receiving end of those goals. So another game week that Broja unfortunately didn't return, but with nice doubles coming up and Southampton's attack looking quite strong, I have faith in the cheap budget striker. Raul Jimenez though, what goes and happens with him? He gets benched against West Ham, which I can't really explain too much. I know that he did look quite tired against Arsenal, but West Ham are current direct rival for Wolves, so I would have thought that they would have played their main choice striker. So what does that kind of tell us? Is Raul Jimenez now down on the pecking order, or was it just a rest? His stats against West Ham in the past have actually been quite strong, and that's why I was actually disappointed that he didn't start, and when he came off the bench, didn't do much, just a 1 point appearance. But now finally going on to our captaincy consideration for double/blank game week 27, and I say double game week with a pinch of salt there because obviously someone did not tell the Burnley assets. So Weghorst ends up getting 2 points in the first game and then 1 point in the second game last night against Leicester after picking up a yellow card for arguing with the ref in the second half. Now Weghorst did have his chances last night against Leicester, not too many to be honest. I guess the only threat came off those set pieces, but in the first game I know that he did have an offside goal that was a tad unlucky. So I know there'll be those of you in the comments down below who captain a Heung-min Son, a Kane, saying why on earth did you captain a Burnley attacker, but at the end of the day he had a double game week and you're not an FPL manager if you don't go for those doubles. But overall, to kind of conclude, 41 points, relatively bad game week considering the no free hit usage, and we're currently sitting just above that 19k spot. So thankfully we managed to review that game week 27 team quite quickly. The quicker we did it the better, and now let's focus on double game week 28 where the team actually does look quite strong. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is going to be the bench. So currently on our bench, what you guys will see is the starting 11 and the bench don't necessarily correlate. I have some players in my starting 11 that aren't looking that strong, but the fact of the matter is that I'm probably going to transfer those players out anyways. So I wanted to give you guys the best representation of the bench as possible. And why is that? Well, I will be probably using the bench boost heading into double game week 28. I've not activated the chip yet, but I do think it's under heavy consideration, and let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the current bench. So you guys will see that it largely consists of Arsenal and Liverpool assets. Arsenal taking on Watford. I've got Ramsdale, Saka and Ben White, and then finally Trent against West Ham. Now my main concern here is that Watford have actually looked a little bit better in terms of attacking and especially defending, so it almost makes me think back to a Leeds when they were taking on Brighton on our bench boosted and only ended up with 8 points. But I do think Arsenal have also looked quite strong. I know they came back against Wolves and ended up winning that game, so maybe a Saka from an attacking point of view won't be that bad, but I just worry about a sneaky goal from a Dennis or a King against Ramsdale and Ben White. Trent Alexander-Arnold, I have no problem bench boosting. I think West Ham, not the best fixture in the world, but it's a home game, and Liverpool always do perform quite well at Anfield. So let me know in the comments down below, would you guys bench boost this, or would you rather save it for another game week? But now going on to our double game week 28 starting 11, where the majority of players actually have doubles, and that's going to continue through our defense with Foster, who has Villa away and Newcastle at home. So recently Southampton have had a resurgence of defensive form. Forster playing in goal since McCarthy's been injured. He looks like quite a strong goalkeeper, doesn't get the most save points in the world, but those clean sheets are quite rare, and against Villa away and Newcastle at home, I'm hoping he gets at least one. Luca Digne with Southampton at home and Leeds away, and then Saiss with the lovely double of Crystal Palace and Watford at home. I'm expecting a lot of big things from these two defenders, maybe even some attacking returns to go with those clean sheets. But the defender in the middle there is going to be the sore one out, the single game week player, and it's not a great single game week to be honest against Chelsea at home. But unfortunately Ben Mee did pick up that injury. We don't exactly know the extent of it, wait for those press conferences, but I do think I'll be shipping Ben Mee out anyways for a double game week player. Moving on to our midfield department, we have Heung-min Son against Everton, which I'm perfectly fine playing. I think against Everton, Spurs are looking quite strong from an attacking point of view, and I do think Son could actually outperform some double game week players. Currently, Coutinho is going to be our captain with Southampton at home and Leeds away. I do think that Leeds side will still concede some under the new management. And with Southampton, I do own some defensive coverage. So even if Coutinho blanks, I just hope that Southampton keep a clean sheet. But the captaincy is under heavy consideration. I could always go for Rafinha, a Salah, or maybe another option if I do think they'll return the points. Talking about Rafinha, he has Leeds away and then Aston Villa at home. That Leeds side did not impress me from a defensive point of view. They did impress me from an attack, but I do think that Leeds could score against them, and the same goes for Aston Villa. Now my only concern is maybe if Rafinha does get rotated under the new Leeds manager, maybe he comes in with a new formation or something like that, but I generally think that you can't bench the Brazilian because he's the best Leeds player, maybe not at the current moment though. And finally, we have Mahrez against United. Mahrez ended up starting last night in the FA Cup against some lowly opposition, and I do think that that's a little bit of a worrying sign there when they do face their rivals on the weekend. Now, Mahrez to me has shown that he is a rotation concern. I was always going to have him as a one-week punt, and if you guys did watch the deadline stream, I said Mahrez is always going to become Salah pre-Game Week 28. And now finally going to our forward department, we have Broja and Raul Jimenez, who have the same fixtures as their colleagues Forster and Saiss. Great fixtures on paper. I just hope that both these two assets do start both, as that'll be quite a happy event in my life in terms of FPL. As with Raul Jimenez benching, hope that he's got his rest he deserves, and Broja with Adams in the wings and other striker options, I just hope that he stays first choice. And then finally we have Weghorst, who's going to be on the way out probably as well. Faces Chelsea. If he can't score in the double game week, I'm hoping that he doesn't score against Chelsea and come back to bite me if I do transfer him out. So this is going to be the team with no transfers made, and the reason I wanted to do this is just to give you guys some context of what I'm dealing with, just to make those transfers and those hits look slightly better. In terms of transfers, we have 1 free transfer and 6.5 in the bank, so let's go see how we're going to splash that cash. So going on to our transfer plan, and I'm going to be going through these transfers one by one and kind of giving you guys my context and my decision making behind them. And let me know in the comments down below if you agree with them or you think I'm going a little bit too mental. But the first transfer for me is going to be a little bit of a no-brainer. Ben Mee, currently injured. If he comes back from injury, still faces Chelsea at home. Not a great game week in my opinion. And that's why I will definitely be taking Ben Mee out. But for who? We spoke about that Chelsea double, potentially if Chelsea beat Luton or if Norwich beat Liverpool tonight, then Chelsea do double and they have Burnley and also Norwich at home. So I think a heavy consideration is going to be a Chelsea defender to bring in, but which one to go for? My personal favorite is going to be Rudiger at 6.2641 million. Can't exactly remember the price point, but definitely does come in more expensive than Thiago Silva, but I do think he's worth it. Now the biggest thing with these defensive assets is that you just have to hope they start both, and I think Rudiger gives us the best chance of that over someone like a Reece James. Now if Chelsea don't get the double, I don't think I'll be bringing him in. I then will probably go for another Wolves defender as someone like a Kilman or maybe a Connor Cody, as I just think that Wolves double is too hard to ignore. But now going on to our second no-brainer transfer in my opinion, it's going to be Mahrez out, and the transfer in, you guessed it already, it's going to be Mo Salah. I said this last week that Mahrez was a one-week punt. I just wanted some coverage from a Man City attack against Everton, but Mo Salah is going to be my man going forward and probably my triple captain in game week 29. So yet again for me another no-brainer transfer, even if it's for a -4, Mahrez a rotation risk, whereas Salah is the best player in the world currently. And now go on to our -8 transfer, which yet again is a no-brainer transfer for me. It's going to be Weghorst out, similar fixtures to Ben Mee, also faces Chelsea at home, don't think he'll do too much there, and the player I'll be bringing in is going to be Che Adams from Southampton. So I spoke about Southampton's attacking form. Che Adams is in great form at the current moment. With the double game week, no-brainer for me, even if it is yet again another -4. So let me just remind you, currently we are on a -8, but I think you guys will agree with me that these transfers look quite solid, but now I might be going a little bit too far. So for a -12, what I'm currently looking to do is take out Ramsdale, who does have a single game against Watford, but a double next week, for Salah from Wolves. So now you guys can kind of see why I was talking about that FA Cup at the start. If Rudiger doesn't get the double, I will simply just bring in a Kilman or a Cody and not do this extra -4. But I honestly do think because I'm bench boosting and Ramsdale might actually concede against Watford, I think Sar's the safer option. Now yes, we are taking out Ramsdale, who does have a double next week, but I honestly don't really favour that double as I think they're going to concede in both of those games. But yes, this is more of a maverick move, a more out there move, and not really a conservative one, as I am taking out a player for a hit who has a double next week. Now the reason I might actually be fine with doing this extra hit is that, as I mentioned firstly, I don't really like the Ramsdale double, and I also could use a free transfer next week to bring in another player with a better fixture. My current thinking is maybe a Pickford who has a relatively nice double game week, both games are at home, but Everton are a little bit dodgy defensively, and that does worry me. But also added to this is that the team currently looks quite strong for game week 30's blank, and therefore I don't necessarily have to use those transfers on those blank game week players, and that does give me some space to kind of make these moves that are a bit more aggressive. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, not necessarily just about the Ramsdale move, maybe all the moves. For me the -8's a no-brainer, but the -12 might be a step too far. But now what I wanted to show you guys is just going to be the team layout or the starting 11 and the bench. If I do this -12 hit, you guys will see there -12 with 0.2 in the bank. I just wanted to also let you guys know that the majority of these options might actually rise in price. I think that Salah or Salah are close to rising. I think Salah rose last night, so hopefully he doesn't rise again before the deadline. But you guys can now see that the bench has changed. Ramsdale's not in goal. It's going to be Forster as my second goalkeeper, and that does make the bench look slightly better. I guess it gives me some coverage if Ben White or Arsenal actually lose the clean sheet. I'm not necessarily doubled up on them. I have a differential in the Southampton goalkeeper. Moving on to the defense, Salah and Rudiger then slot into that starting 11. Crystal Palace, Watford, great double, and I think that could potentially be a double clean sheet for Wolves. Rudiger, Burnley, Norwich, if they get that double game week, looks simply outstanding alongside Digne and Saiz. Go on to the midfield department. Yet again, Mo Salah has come in for Mahrez. A little bit of a no-brainer there. I think Liverpool are looking hungry, especially Mo Salah. And I do think against West Ham, they'll put on a good performance in that kind of a top-of-the-table clash. Adams in our forward department slots in as well. Great double game week and great form. And hopefully him and Buraya can complement each other, getting those assists and those goals. So this would be the team if I make a -12. I mean, I love a -12 and a bench boost combo, you guys know that. Just joking, you don't really want to take that many hits, especially after a new wild card was used about 2 game weeks ago. But I honestly think most of these moves are no-brainers, but you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. But this is the best wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please remember to like if you did and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow for a wildcard guide. Just want the kind of FA Cup games to clarify so that we do have blank game week 30 on our horizons. So make sure you guys watch out for that. But I'm only signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.